if you're going to go live, you have to 10x your energy.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's unleashing creativity to grow their business. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can reach me at max@hippodirect.com for any help with podcasting or digital marketing. This is episode number 42. Shout out Jackie Robinson. And today's guest is Stephanie Liu. Stephanie is a live video expert, the creator of the Facebook Live show Lights Camera Live, and also runs her own social media agency. You'll learn how to excel at live video and also some pretty fun and unusual tricks for creativity. Lights, camera, live. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Stephanie Liu, the live video expert and founder and creator of Lights Camera Live. How are you doing today, Stephanie?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing outstanding as well. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited for this conversation. Your content and your video series and agency are very impressive. There's a lot of different things that you're doing. Obviously, a lot of it, you've really established your niche as an expert in this live video space. For anybody that's not as familiar with you yet, you mind going a little bit into how you got started with your professional career and what's kind of led you to where you are today?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm an ad agency veteran. So I pretty much spent the last decade and a half deep in the trenches of agency life. My background is pretty much in PPC and SEO.
All the acronyms.
Yeah, that's how I got my first start.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until 2015 when I had my daughter that I was like, okay, this 50 plus hours a week thing isn't going to work when you bring another human being into this world.
Right.
So I decided, okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and launch my own agency. If I could do this for Nike Sephora Clinique, I sure as heck can do it for myself. So I went about that. And then I realized that everyone else was calling themselves, a digital marketing strategist. And and at that point, Max, I was like, okay, well, how do I separate myself from the sea of sameness? And that's when I decided that jumping in front of the camera and instead of just telling people what I do and actually showing them behind the scenes what I could do, I could go ahead and win more clients that way. And that's basically how Lights Camera Live came to life.
Oh, and how has that adjustment been since your daughter has come into the world? How has that changed your lifestyle?
Oh, it's like living with the Tasmanian devil. It's it's a blessing. I mean, she is everything to me. And, I work 4 days a week. Wednesdays is whatever we want Wednesdays. So I completely shut down on a Wednesday. I'm like, no emails. We are going to the park. We're going to the museum. So she's brought a lot of joy into our lives.
Yeah. Well, shout out alliteration for that. Whatever we want Wednesdays. So going back to your ad agency career, you mentioned you're an ad agency veteran.
Yeah.
What were your favorite parts from the agency days? What did you do that you enjoyed the most?
I loved pitching clients. I think that was the fun part was when everyone would go into the war room, right? So I worked in an agency where we had in-house branding, creative, digital, social, all of that under one roof. And whenever we had to pitch a new client, we would go into the war room and we would work out our presentations. And that made me super excited. It felt like performing, and being able to sweep the leg on your competition because you guys have rehearsed, right?
Right. Yeah. And the blood, you got the butterflies every time the blood is pumping. Do you have any tips or advice for anybody that is pitching clients like that and putting on their theatrical performance?
Any advice for that? Well, if you're going to be performing or pitching by yourself, you have to get into the most confident state, right? So you got to walk into that room. You got to completely own it. I mean, walking into the room, maybe having the Rocky Balboa song stuck in your head, like Eye of the Tiger, and that will get you going, right? But if you're going to have other people on the same pitch team as you guys got to coordinate what your stories are going to be, because it's really what the stories are that's really going to hook your audience in when you're pitching them. Like as you mentioned earlier, there's so many acronyms, especially in the digital marketing world, that if you just hit them like with the PPCs and the SEOs, they're going to clock out.
Yeah, they're going to GTFO. But no, it's very true. You make some great points about pitching. And next time I'm working out, I'm going to blast the Rocky Balboa song. So shout out for that. But so you had that experience in the ad agency world. It sounds like you really changed things up once you had your daughter. What's been the biggest change you've noticed so far professionally about going out on your own versus being part of an agency?
Well, the beauty of going out on your own is that you're able to pick and choose clients based off of your own values. And I feel like that's the most empowering thing that you could do for yourself, because you're no longer just accepting clients because they'll pay the bills. You're accepting clients that align with your values. For me, like working with clients that leave a legacy is one of my top priorities. So if I have a client that is doing the best that they can to make the world a better place for the next generation, I am so on top of that. But if you are, a brand and you're like, I just want to get clicks to sell some merch, I'm like, that might not work out for us.
Yeah. So how often do you think that you're saying no to potential client opportunities versus yes?
I probably say once a week. Yeah. Because, coming from the agency world, what's really nice is that once you've built up your credibility, everyone wants to refer business to you. And at that point, sometimes they know you for one thing. So in this case, let's say social media retainers. And I'm like, I've actually shifted my business and now I'm doing more live streaming for brands.
So that's a good note. So that's a good segue. I would love to speak about Lights Camera Live. So for anybody that hasn't seen your show yet or familiar with the brand, can you give a little intro to what is Lights Camera Live?
Yeah, well, Lights Camera Live, it's a live broadcast on Facebook where we shine a spotlight on the best and brightest marketers in the industry so you could take your business from unknown to unforgettable using social media. And what's really fun about it is that, yes, it's a live show, but it's completely branded. And I think that's what really separates it from the sea of sameness, is the fact that it's branded. You could bring on guests. We do a lot of screencasting tutorials, and it just really puts it on a whole different level than what you usually see in the Facebook newsfeed.
Yeah. And again, with the alliteration with the sea of sameness, that's the second sea of sameness. Second sea of sameness in this show. I can't think of any more S's, but here we are, Stephanie. So I love the idea for that, and you describe it in such a wonderful way. Where did the idea come about in the first place?
It was one of those things where as soon as I hit the button, right? Of course, like we talked about, like the eye of the tiger, I was like, girl, you got to hype yourself up, right?
Right.
In my head, instead of saying lights, camera, action, I was like, lights, camera, live. And that as soon as that came out, at this point, I'm all about alliteration. So I was like, oh, that's the name. That is the name. Trademark. Let's get this, lightscameralive.com, done and done.
Wow. Okay. There you go. And what's been, when you think back to the video series, what's been some of the most memorable moments from it?
Oh gosh, so many, but I would say like the part that really resonates with me the most is the fact that every time I go live and I see one of my fans or my viewers leave a comment, I could tell right off the bat if that is a loyal listener or if that's someone that's completely new, because then their names will pop out and I'm like, oh, Max, hey, you're a first-time viewer. Thanks for chiming in. It's like, and that just builds like an instant connection for me. And I think that's probably the most memorable piece, is just seeing how your audience grows with every single episode that you release.
Yeah. When you're such an expert as you are with live video, it amazes me, the streamers, how much multitasking is involved, because obviously you're speaking into the camera, but also you're paying attention to those comments. How do you manage that?
Oh, okay. Strategically. Before, in the beginning, when I first started live streaming, it felt a little overwhelming. It felt a little bit of sensory overload, because to your point, you're looking at the camera because you're trying to make eye contact with your viewers and still pay attention to what your guest is saying, right? And then through my peripheral, I would see like comments popping up, and that's because I use Ecamm, and they have this little thing where you could see each of the comments coming up. Mm-hmm. And what I started to realize is that instead of like having my eyes dart all over the place, what I could do is I could say, okay, Max, here's a question. And as soon as you start answering, Max, I switch the screen so it's on to you. And then I could look over at the comments and be like, okay, cool. This person had a question. Cool, cool, cool. Switch the screen and then I'm back to it. Yeah.
Ooh, we're getting some real behind the scenes here.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's smart. Yeah, it makes sense. And you do it seamlessly. And how do you go about finding the guests that are on your show?
It starts off with the social media strategist group. So I have a bunch of social media strategists in there. And from time to time, I'll literally ask them like, hey, what are you guys working on right now? What do you need help with in order to reach your goal this month? And sometimes they'll say a few things like, oh, I'm really struggling right now with Instagram, or I want to learn more about Twitter chats. I'll use that information and start putting it into my editorial calendar of like which guests I want to bring on. Because I know that if there's a specific need and you already have a built-in audience that's saying, hey, I'm raising my hand, I need help with this, then if I actually go live with that particular topic, their ears are going to perk up and they're going to tune in. And that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, it is. And with that group, it's a closed Facebook group, correct?
It is. Yeah. I try to keep it spam free. Like, I don't like people that post and ghost. That's no fun.
Yeah. Another great rhyme. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So that's obviously one benefit of a closed group. But how did you decide overall to go with the closed group as opposed to an open Facebook group?
I mean, you search for like social media marketing on Facebook and you're going to find like hundreds, if not thousands of groups, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted the social media strategist group to be on a whole different level. Like I wanted real strategists. I wanted other agency people like me who are just like, you know what? I've got a template for that. Hey, you want to do a social media retainer estimate? Boom, I got you. Right. And so I wanted to have like-minded people in there. And so it started to grow over the years in terms of like the conferences and whatnot. And then eventually I started letting other entrepreneurs in there, like if they really wanted to learn. And what I have right now, Max, is a filter where I'll ask like 3 questions like, A, why are you interested in joining this group? Which specific social media discipline are you most interested? Because that goes back into the show, right?
Right.
Third is, if you want to get updates for Lights Camera Live, give me your email address and then you're in. If they don't answer any of those questions, I'm like, you know what? You're not as serious about this as I am. So how about you just go find another group?
There we go. I'm sure there's a 4th question of, are you interested in the sea of sameness or are you against the sea of sameness?
Seriously.
Yeah, but it's effective. And we've seen a lot of top marketers out there have a lot of great results and just great engagement with these closed groups out there. Especially, it's another one of those things that I think kind of arose once organic reach just started dying on Facebook. I mean, within those groups, it can still be an effective way of reaching your fans and people in your community. So I love how much effort and energy you put into that.
Oh, thanks.
Of course. For Lights Camera Live, you also have training that you do. And I know one of the levels is about $5 a month.
Oh yeah, the 360 Marketing Squad. Oh yeah, that's a ton of fun.
Yeah, can you speak about that for a little bit? Like what's involved with that, and I'm curious how many of your clients you get from the lower cost like that versus different offerings.
Sure, yeah. So the 360 Marketing Squad, it includes myself, where I talk a lot about live streaming as well as video marketing. But then you also get Mike Alton, who is like the blogging brute. He knows everything about blogging, right?
Oh my, he's incredible in blogging. He's like, it's hard to believe. The quantity and quality of his posts is just insane in itself.
He's a beast. I feel like every time I'm done with the live show, he's like, oh, I just published a blog post. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And it's that quick too.
It is. We have this long running joke that Mike probably has long toes and he's just typing underneath his desk by the time that we're done with the live show. Like he already hit publish. So
there we go. Shout out Mike Alton's toes. There we go.
There you go. You can tell him that he's totally going to kill me now.
All right, whatever. It's not like it's on the record or anything. Whoops. But yeah, but about more of that.
Of the squad, yeah. So then we also have Amanda Robinson, who is such a ninja whenever it comes to messenger bots and Facebook advertising. And then last but not least, we have the Grandmaster, Jen Herman. So there's a lot of people in our circles where they would ask us, we each have like our own groups. Right. And people would always ask us these questions and we're like, you know what, let's just form a group, right? Kind of like, I always laugh because I always think of like Transformers. I'm like, Optimus Prime, we all come together. And here's the 360 marketing squad, and ask a question. And then you'll get 360 feedback in terms of how to approach your specific marketing problem in terms of PPC, SEO, how live streaming can play into it and so on and so forth. And people are finding a ton of value in that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I like the Transformer.
Yeah, I'm pretty nerdy.
Comparison. It's great. Hey, it's great. I've said it in a previous episode, but nerds unite. I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, like nerds unite, and I think I've been branded as adorkable because I'm just like, I will geek out on anything.
That's great. I've actually never heard that before. I'll start using that, adorkable. And that could be as little as $5 per month, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes we have a couple of the members who are like, okay, I was digging that advice. Now I want to go in depth, and that gives them an opportunity if they want to work with us one-on-one. Then they could go ahead and book a consulting call, right? So it's more of like an easy in at that point.
We'll kind of take a step back here. Let's talk about live video, just more in general.
Mm-hmm.
How did you hone in on live video in the first place? Why was it appealing to you?
Well, that's such a good question. Well,
thank you.
I was trying to think to myself, well, again, how do I make myself stand out, and how do I make myself top of mind and tip of tongue? Another alliteration for you.
This is, I'm blown away by the, like you only need like 3 letters in the language, in the alphabet with the alliteration you use.
Seriously. And so what I noticed is that every time you went live, anyone that you were connected to would get a notification. I was like, okay, so how can I leverage that? How can I use that to my advantage? Because if I just posted a video, I might not get the organic reach that I wanted, but if I could strategically leverage the free advertisement that Facebook is going to give me, then I might as well do that. So I started live streaming back, I think, was it 2016? And I would play around with certain things. Like I was using OBS Studio back in the day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to mistake it until I make it. And, I fumbled my way through it for a little bit, but I had an audience, that loves the hero journey. They're like, okay, Max, like, what are you working on? Oh, he figured it out. Oh, cool. Like it's now a thing. And they were just with me.
That's a real example, by the way. That's what they say.
Yeah. So it's just like, they would follow you all like throughout your journey. And then at that point, that's how I built up my audience. But what was really cool was because I came from an ad agency background, all the clients that I was ever connected to, all the other colleagues that I had worked with in the agency were now getting a notification. And so they're like, oh, hey, Steph, like, what is it that you're doing now? Hey, do you need clients? And all of a sudden it became like my go-to referral.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, screw trying to post 5 times a day on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like if I just go live twice a month, and by the time I'm done with every single broadcast, I'm getting a new lead, for sure sign me up for that. Like, where do I put my name? Let's do that. Let's do it.
Yeah. And so your network was already filled with tons of people that were like-minded from a business sense. So it's incredible. You kind of hacked into the algorithm for Facebook there, and it's worked incredible for you from a lead standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very cool. For anybody that's interested in starting a live video series of their own, where do they get started?
It really depends on what is it that you want to accomplish. So like have a desired outcome, right? One of I'd say the biggest mistakes most people make with live streaming is that they just push the button and then all of a sudden they're just a deer in headlights. And I think, right? And you're like, what's happening here?
Yeah. Well, I'm envisioning like an hour-long live video of someone just staring at the screen.
Or they're just. I had this one client, Max, where she's like, "Oh, what is this new Facebook Live feature?" And she hit the button, and then someone called her name in the office, and she put her phone down in her lap. Totally forgot that she was live streaming. The whole entire time, you're just like looking up her nose. You're like, oh, client texting her, "What are you doing? Stop that!" But for sure, if you're going to go live, have a desired outcome, know exactly what it is that you want to accomplish, right? Do you want to inform, educate, inspire your audience?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really going to help you out in the long term. Because again, Facebook is going to push your content to the top of the newsfeed and take advantage of that. If you're just kind of fumbling with the tech and you're just like, oh, what button do I push? People, the next time that you go live, they're going to totally swipe. They're going to scroll past you at that point. You definitely have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to be very prepared. And there is more, like, I think most people would say there's more pressure with live video than other types of video. I mean, video in itself is a bigger ask and there's more involved with it. There's more work, but live video, I mean, you're live, like if you mess up, people are going to see that. So how do you manage that pressure and staying composed while you're lights, camera, live?
While you're living?
Yeah, while you're living.
The way that I imagine it is that the camera itself, I just imagine it as if that's like my best friend. I'm just like, dude, it's been forever since I've seen you, Max. How are you doing? And I think just having that vibe, you create this instant connection. And it's no longer of thinking like, oh my God, people are going to judge me and yada, yada. It's because when you're talking to a friend and if you flub on your words, it's okay because they're still hanging out with you, right? So just having that mindset of this isn't necessarily, I'm performing to an audience. It's I'm setting aside an hour twice a month just to kick it with you, just to hang out and geek out. And if you're ready to geek out, then come hang out, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I would be very bummed if my friends stopped hanging out with me because I stumbled over my words.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Friends don't do that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What does your preparation process look like as far as what you do, like right before you go live? Do you have a pre-game ritual?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was just laughing because I was like, he's going to say pregame. I hear it. He's going to say it.
Yeah. Well, I tend to like sports as well. So any sports analogy, I work it in.
Oh, love it. Yeah. Okay. So Thursdays are usually when I go live. And so like the whole entire morning, I am just in the zone. I've got like my favorite jams playing. I've got Eye of the Tiger on there. I've got a little bit of Kanye West. I'm just like doing my thing. Like whatever makes you feel like the most confident is what I'm doing. So sometimes on my Instagram stories, I'm like, you guys, this is happening. Like I'm dancing on camera and I'm like, we're going to do this. And that's probably the best way that I get hyped up for the show, because if you're going to go live, you have to 10x your energy. Like if I was just like talking to you the way that I probably talk to like my girlfriend at a restaurant, it might not come across as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm fluent in all languages, so go ahead. No.
And so to really like pull in a viewer and to make their ears perk up and just really want to hang out with you, you have to 10x your energy and you have to get into that confident state. And so in the morning, I don't take any other client calls. I'm just completely in that headspace. I've got my jams playing. I've made sure that I've had like my coffee and I'm good to go. Like same thing, like even today, like I knew, okay, I'm going to hang out with Max today at 10 a.m. This is what I'm going to do, right? I got like my playlist going. I got my coffees by me. And I was like, all right, let's take a look at the questions. I'm good. I'm feeling good. Cool. Let's do this.
Bam. Well, awesome. Those are incredible tips. And then how about after you're done with the show? What's your process after? How do you take those potential leads and actually turn it into business?
Usually what happens is after I'm done with the show, the leads will just come in, honestly, because at that point, you've built that know, like, and trust factor. They've seen you on camera. They've had a conversation with you, or maybe they're like one of the silent viewers. You know what I'm talking about? Like they watch, but they don't say anything. Right. And then all of a sudden they message you in the inbox and they're like, hey, Max, I've been listening to you forever. And you're like, what? You've never left a comment.
Right. Yeah. Well, which is interesting because even outside of live video, there's people that are called like have the reputation of, I forget what it's called, like lurkers or stalkers that view stuff on social media, but never like or comment on anything. And it's funny that applies to live video as well.
It does. It does. And so what I think about this is that when someone buys something, right, they have to see your brand or your product X amount of times. And when they finally feel comfortable and confident in knowing that like, okay, this person can definitely help me solve this problem, then they're going to reach out to you. And so that's generally what happens is that they'll reach out to me in my inbox and be like, hey, Steph, like I'm working on this project. Would you be interested? Yada, yada. And that usually helps out a lot. But usually after a show, I'll hop into the comments and I'll see like who's tuning in. And that's when I could see like, okay, Bina tuned in, Mike tuned in. Awesome. Wait, Max, you're brand new, right? Like, what brought you to the show? How did you find me? And that's like a really great way for me again to like just build the audience and work from there.
Yeah. And a lot of this keeps going back to personal touch, which is so important, especially as the world just gets more and more social and kind of virtual connections with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Wild listeners, have you been wanting to start a podcast for yourself or your business, but didn't know where to start? Or do you have a podcast of your own, but you're struggling with the time commitment? I'd love to help. Shoot me an email at max@hippodirect.com with any podcasting questions you have. I'm also happy to jump on a 30-minute call where we can discuss your idea, planning, production, promotion, and other elements of the podcasting world. Let your podcast run wild. So let's move into a segment on inspiration and creativity, as you're a very inspirational and creative individual. And so would love to see kind of what makes you tick, get into the mind of Stephanie here. So first question here, what do you do to stay creative?
First off is, I take breaks during my work hours. So I'll work for about a good 90 minutes and then, I'll take a break and actually walk outside and get some vitamin D because I feel like the sun is what energizes me and gives me those creative ideas.
Yeah.
I also love listening to binaural beats. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Could you dive into that a little more?
Yeah, so binaural beats is like knowing the different brain waves, right? And so alpha waves are the ones that are really going to go ahead and spark that creativity in you. And I noticed that when I'm listening to binaural beats as I'm working, all these new ideas will go ahead and pop into my mind. And so I have these post-it notes just all over my desk. Like you can even hear it if I those are all post-it notes, right? And I'm just always putting ideas on them. I'll put it on a post-it note and then I'll put it on my whiteboard. I'm like, cool, I'm going to work on this later. That's definitely one of the ways that I keep my creativity open is I listen to binaural beats. I read a ton of books. I'm really into hypnosis and NLP.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think it also stems back to the fact when we were all at the ad agency, like every single pitch team is trained and certified in neurolinguistic programming, knowing how to communicate effectively. And so I love reading stuff about that. And I feel like anytime I'm reading a book, like let's say hypnotic writing, a new idea will come in and I just have I have a Google Doc called stories. And I have a story for like how to overcome objection A, objection B, and like so on and so forth. And that's how I keep sharp when it comes to being creative.
Wow. Oh, so there's a ton there that is fascinating. Let's start with hypnosis, because actually when I first reached out to you and you were looking at my previous episodes, the one that stuck out to you was the episode where we had a hypnotist on. So there's Robin Kennedy from Response Suite. They run an email marketing platform, but also Rob is a hypnotist and Kennedy is a mind reader over in the UK there. So so we dove into a lot about that, but it's cool how that stuff is very appealing to you as well. Are there any books about hypnotists that you recommend?
Yeah, well, Milton Erickson, total like that's the bar right there. Right? Milton Erickson for sure is one. I'm actually you probably hear my voice moving around because I'm like, where's my books? Did I just drop it on the floor?
Oh, they're under your post-it notes.
Yeah, I know, right? So Hypnotic Writing by Joe Vitale is one of my favorite ones. It talks all about pacing and leading, talking about, different formulas that you can use in your writing, even in your presentations, I think is pretty spot on. Another one that I like is how to use NLP in your presentations. Mm-hmm. It's I'm trying to take a look at my bookshelf and it's all the way across the room. I'm like, where is it? It's right over there.
We need someone to hypnotize the book if we could and bring it over.
Yeah. But there's just a lot of stuff that I love to read, just in terms of NLP in general.
And are there any other topics that you enjoy reading about? Any other genres, I guess?
Genres. I want to say something, but it's going to come out completely nerdy. But whatever, I'll say it. I love watching Korean dramas because I love the way that they edit their videos.
Well, that's adorable.
Yeah. Well, I just find that the way that they shoot and edit their videos sometimes I find myself taking those ideas and repurposing it into Lights Camera Live or into lifestyle videos that I do for my clients. I just try to pick up what other people are doing and do my own variation from it.
Right. Okay. And are there any names that come to mind to drop out? This will be the first Korean drama reference in podcast.
Oh my God, you're totally going to judge me, but that's okay.
No, I know. I love it.
If you watch it too, that's like a total love connection and we'll be best friends forever.
Perfect.
Goblin is definitely one of my favorites right now. What's Wrong with Secretary Kim is another good one. I swear to God, if anyone ever comes up to me at a conference and they're just like, hey, let's talk about Korean dramas, I'm like, let's hang out.
There we go. All right. Well, now you've revealed the key to your heart. So it's on the record. There we go.
Yeah.
And let's touch on the beats that you mentioned, which you said binaural beats?
Binaural beats.
Binaural? Yeah. So is that a special type of music or audio, or is that like, can we hear that in popular music?
I don't think you would actually hear it in popular music. I'm trying to think of the name right now. It was like Thievery something. But you can find a lot of these binaural beats if you do a lot of meditation. Mm-hmm. And you can find a lot of it on YouTube. Like sometimes I'll just have binaural beats, alpha waves playing the whole entire time. I actually have another good friend of mine who's a shaman, and he makes his own beats and he'll send it out to our mastermind. We have a mastermind of NLP practitioners and master practitioners. Oh, and wow. He's like, you guys, I got this new track. Take a listen. Let me know what you think. And it's a thing.
There you go. That's like Dr. Dre, like Beats by Shaman.
Yes. Yeah.
So, wow. I got to check some of this stuff out. This is crazy. Also, in terms of inspiration and creativity, how about people? Like, who's been most influential for you as you've gone into the marketing and entrepreneurial world?
Oh, where do I even start? I'd probably say that Amy Porterfield is like one of my favorites when it comes to marketing.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love how she takes really complex topics and breaks them down into bite size. And you're just like, I can do this. Like, she totally makes you feel empowered. Like, by the time you're done with the podcast, you're like, I could freaking do this, Max. And I could do this in my sleep. Just watch me. So I absolutely love her. I'm also a big, huge fan of Mike Alton, which is, why he's a part of the 360 squad. Is I love that his previous background, he was the CMO of this company called SightSell. And he has so much knowledge about that. And he's so well versed in terms of blogging and newsjacking and all of that stuff. And he and I, sometimes I'm just like, yo, I've got this idea. What do you think? And then we'll just kind of riff off of each other and come up with new ideas. It's like this idea baby that comes to life.
Idea baby. There you go.
Yeah, I have this idea. You have this idea. Boom.
If that's not trademarked already, we got to get on that. Idea baby.
Ideababy.com.
Well, those are incredible examples. I recently attended one of Amy's webinars with John Lee Dumas, who I previously had on the show, and I was just blown away. Like, I know she's the queen of webinars and she's very good on video, but I was just blown away by how inspiring and how polished she is. I mean, she's on another level. But I think Stephanie Liu's coming for her. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I'm like, if anything, I'm like the official hype queen whenever it comes to live streaming.
There we go. The hype queen and founder of Idea Baby. Ideababy.com. Let's move to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
I couldn't tell if you were laughing or you were like drinking water.
I was mid drinking water and I was like, don't choke.
Yeah, no, we don't want you to choke. But Wild Business Shout Out of the Week, this is where we talk about a recent marketing campaign or something a brand is doing that caught our attention. And earlier you were talking about something that most people have experienced, especially when growing up, but also into their adult lives. Can you speak about your Girl Scout cookies example?
Oh my gosh, I love Girl Scout cookies. In fact, like just a few weeks ago, a Girl Scout had came to the door and my husband was the one that answered it. And he's like, no, we don't want anything. And then he came back to the living room and I was like, who's that? He's like, Girl Scout cookies. And I was like, oh, and you turned her away? I was like, who did I marry? Oh my goodness. And I like,
oh my God.
Like pushed it to the side and ran to the door. I was like, come back. I want my Girl Scout cookies. But one of the campaigns that really stood out to me was this girl, this little Girl Scout, so clever. She was from Colorado, and have you ever had Momoas?
You mean Samoas?
Oh yeah, sorry, Samoas. Yeah, see, I'm completely like, ugh.
Oh, now you ever had? Yeah, of course. Yeah, those are some of the most popular ones.
Yeah, so Samoa's is my absolute favorite. And this gal in Colorado, basically, she rebranded her Samoas to Jason Momoa's. And I was like, no way. Like, she literally took the Girl Scout box of Samoa's and slapped a picture of a shirtless Aquaman on there. And I was like, do you want a Momoa? And I was like, oh, I would so buy that right now. If she was right in front of me, I'm like, yes, please. And like put it on my shelf behind my show, like in the background. I'm like, yes, by the way, I have a limited edition Momoas. No, you cannot have one. But I thought that was so brilliant.
Yeah, it is. But shout out Vinny Chase from Entourage, the original Aquaman. But we'll get to that separately. How did you hear about that campaign in the first place? Oh, I guess it wasn't even really. I guess it was her campaign.
Yeah, it was her campaign, and I think I first heard of it on maybe Reddit. I think it popped up on my Reddit feed, and I was like, "This is so smart." You know, they just snapped a photo of her, and then they shared it, and I was like, "You guys, this is so smart. This is smart branding. This is actually newsjacking. You know, when a movie comes out, Aquaman, whatnot, and it's popular." That's a great way for you to go ahead and make your brand top of mind and tip of tongue. And it was so clever, right? Perfect timing. Just had like a Girl Scout come to the door, and I was like, man, this is smart. I like looked at my daughter. I was like, girl, you're going to be on a whole nother level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great example. And I think it's one of those ideas that in hindsight seems so simple and like a minor change, but it just resonated so well with anybody that came across it. And you know, like you mentioned, newsjacking, it was right around when that movie was making all the buzz and coming out. So incredibly smart and creative campaign tactics by her. Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see like if this will inspire many other girls to start making changes to their Girl Scout cookies. Like what do you think? Do you think this is going to start sort of a trend of people more customizing their Girl Scout cookies or whatever offering they're doing and door to door like that?
I hope so. I think that would be hilarious. I mean, one of my girlfriends is what is it? She's like the CMO for a cannabis place here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And they hit the news because they actually had a Girl Scout post up outside of their shop. And as people went into the store, they'd come out, they'd see her like, why, yes, I would totally love some Samoas right now. And like, she was just selling them. And I was like, wow, so smart. Like know who your audience is.
Yeah. It's so true. So that was a wild business shout of the week. So a couple more segments here. First one is a segment called The Unusual. So get ready for the unusual here. Think about pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. So first question, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Okay. The first thought that just came to my head is when people go live and they don't actually write a description of what they're live streaming about.
Yeah. You see the deer in headlights and you're like, what is this deer in headlights for?
Well, I guess for me, it's kind of like, okay, cool. You've got my attention, but now you want me to watch and not give me a reason why I should buy in. You know, It's like, for me, I'm just like, oh man, that was a missed opportunity. Like if you think that I'm going to stop everything right now to watch what you're doing, that's not going to happen. And so that's kind of a pet peeve.
Right. Yeah. And what do you recommend for that? Like how long should the description be?
I think the description should be long enough to get your point across. I usually tell my students that there's 4 types of audience. There's the why, what, how, and what if, right? People want to know why they should tune in, what you're talking about, how your show is going to impact their business. And if they can't tune in, then where should they find you next? And I think you could cover all of that within like the first 10 seconds in your actual show or just even in your description. Like, hey, what's up, you guys? I'm going to be hanging out with Max. And today we're talking about live streaming for your brand and why it's important because you get more engagement. So I'll show you how to get started. And if you can't tune in, then you could always catch the replay. Like it's that simple. And if people don't nail that in the first 30 seconds, you lose so much of your audience at that point.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've seen that from the podcasting world as well. Like, I mean, some of these top show, like notably, Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, guys like that, and some of the other big names out there. Their shows are incredible. I mean, and like, so not taking anything away from that, and they have such a huge and massive fan base. But some of those shows, like sometimes the ad reads at the start and the introduction, sometimes it's like 7-8 minutes before you're even into the actual interview, and it's like, people are here for the interviews and the guests and the interesting conversations. They're not here for the giant intro at the start. So that same logic applies to live video as well. Just keep it concise and clear and meaningful at the start. Don't take too much time before you really get into it.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. How about quirks? So I guess you mentioned a couple already, but think what it would. By the way, I have a ton of them. Like I love quirks and quirkiness. So anything you can think of that like your daughter or family or friends, anybody calls you out for that like is just a little bit quirky or like an interesting or unique part of your personality?
Oh my goodness. I'd say the inside joke that people always have with me is the food funnel. Have you heard of this?
No, but I'm interested. Go for it.
So I feel like on every single interview or whenever we're doing a 360 Marketing Squad show, it always comes back to food. Like we'll talk about like the digital breadcrumbs that lead you back to the buffet, which is your website. And just, it always becomes a thing. It's one of my quirks. Like I think it'll always pop up in any conversations that I have. We were in the middle of a show and we're talking about how we're all going to meet up at Social Media Marketing World. And so what was funny is that we were all trying to figure out how we could hang out with each other. And I was like, yo, you guys, let's do Dim Summit. And they're like, what is Dim Summit? I was like, it's digital internet marketing over dim sum. Let's do this. And they're like,
oh my God.
What? And in the middle of the show, like one of my viewers, George, I was like, I'm going to Canva right now. And he just made a flyer, posted it on my wall. And then all of a sudden, like by the time the show was over, everyone was like, how do I get an invite to Dim Summit? And I was like, this is the food funnel. The food funnel is what brings people together because you just sit there and you have like food and everyone's like, okay, Max, let's kick it. Let's hang out.
Bam. There you go. Oh, well, who doesn't like food? And Dim Summit, that has a ring to it. So and you got the food in there. I mean, what's not to like? And then how about weird talents? Anything that you're like, you can randomly do, but it doesn't have too much of a benefit. Like, for example, like making like shapes with your tongue or like I mean like an M or like curling your tongue, whatever, or like bending your thumb so it can hit your forearm, like random tricks like that.
Yeah. So have you ever heard someone click with their tongue before? That sounds so weird.
Can you do it?
It's a really, really loud sound. So I'm gonna like push the mic away, but did you hear that?
That was your tongue?
Yeah. And
wow.
And here's
and you were standing across the room too, right?
No, I'm like right here. So here's can I give you the backstory for it?
Of course.
Okay. So when I was younger, I grew up in Japan. I would walk home from school and to give my mom a signal that, hey, I'm like close by, you should unlock the door now, I would click my tongue. And it would be so loud that she would hear it from the house and she'd unlock the door, right, crack it a little bit open, and I'd come home because she didn't give me a key. I was like in the 3rd grade or whatever. Well, ever since then, that has always been a thing. Like if I'm at the store and my husband goes to the other side of the store, I'll just click and then all of a sudden he'll find me.
Wow. I'm blown away. If you don't mind, could you do that one more time?
Yeah. So it goes,
That's incredible. I feel like you have like a full like sound team with you, like a movie sound effects team, like creating something. But
oh yeah,
wow, so, there we go. Yeah, that definitely fits in the weird talents category.
That is a weird talent.
Wow,
that's like the first time I've ever told anyone this.
Oh, thank you. We got a Wild Business Growth Podcast exclusive. So let's wrap up here with rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Sure.
All right, let's get wild. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, it had to be the same thing for every meal, what would it be?
Jjajangmyeon. It's black bean noodles, Korean dish.
How do you say that again?
Jjajangmyeon. It's black bean noodles.
Wow. Okay. Jajet. I learned a new food as well.
Food. See, it just came out.
If you could only listen to the same song over and over again for the rest of your life, and this is a stipulation, it could not be Eye of the Tiger.
And it could not be Eye of the Tiger. It would be This Is Me from The Greatest Showman soundtrack.
There we go. Well, you're ready for your theatrical pitch as well. All right. What is your favorite thing to watch on Netflix right now?
Memories of Alhambra, Korean drama.
Oh, there we go. I should have known. And what is your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time is Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
I was going to ask which one. Oh, you're one step ahead. Okay. And if you were stranded on an island, which I know you're in San Diego, so you already have the island weather, basically. If you were stranded on an island and couldn't bring any sort of technology, what would you bring? One object, and why?
Oh, God. I don't know why this came up, but I was like, chapstick. Just give me my chapstick and I'm cool on the beach.
Stephanie might be on a stranded island, but she's got her chapstick.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. This was a ton of fun. I learned a ton and excited to share out all your amazing tips on live video and beyond, and check out some of the really cool things that you're into to stay creative. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. This was a ton of fun. It was probably the most embarrassing, but whatever. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can edit it. I can edit anything out if you want later, but I think you'll be okay. I think people will think fondly of you.
It's adorable. It's totally on brand. It works.
It is. So speaking of brand, where is the best place for everyone to connect with you and your brand and videos?
Yeah, the best place to hang out is in the Social Media Strategist Facebook group. So it's facebook.com/groups/SM Strategist.
Perfect. Okay. And then do you want to shout out like your other social media channels for just personally as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're more than welcome to go ahead and hang out with me on Facebook, facebook.com/HeyStephanieLu. That's where you'll catch all of the episodes of Lights Camera Live. You'll also find recaps at lightscameralive.com.
That I was going to try to reenact the high pitch uptick there, but I can't. So, so we'll keep it monotone, but awesome. Last thing here, the stage is yours. Do you have a final quote or final thoughts? Anything you want, just to wrap us up.
I mean, honestly, I feel like if you ever see me at a conference and you just shout out Food Funnel, like, let's hang out. Because then I'll know, like, you listen to the show.
And that's the way the cookie crumbles. Food References, the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on the podcast. Make sure to hang out with her and say hey. And thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning in to another edition. If you're hungry for more business growth insights, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also chomp on our blog at hippodirect.com/blog and our newsletter at hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest, and it's your weekly recap of creative marketing from all around the web. For dessert, you can take some bites of our social media sweets at the handles Hippo Direct and Max Brandstetter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!